Good evening, everybody.
Hello, hello.
Welcome to another episode of Critique Corner with me, Daniel Parker.
And me, DB Fastbinder. And welcome to Critique Corner, the show where we review movies to help you figure out if they're worth your time or not.
Indeed, yes.
And also feel important as we critique people who are much more successful than we will ever be.
That too. That too.
So if you'd like to join the 117 other people who seem to enjoy the cut of our jib, don't forget to subscribe now.
Indeed, yes. And feel free to hit the like button and ring the bell, all that.
Oh, no. They can hit the like button. Whatever you do, do not hit that bell. It's a scam, CIA.
Oh yeah.
That's how they get you.
Yes. But as DB pointed out, yeah, we like to do movie reviews, sometimes TV shows, but mostly movie because they take less time to watch than a TV show.
Right. Like if we ever did a deep dive on a whole season of a TV show, that would basically be the review. And just like a quick peek behind the curtains, we often we very rarely were reviewing things we've actually seen before. What you're getting is kind of our first impressions on things, which means that if we picked out a TV show that was just a complete dud, it would be a short show and it could be very entertaining.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But thankfully, I would say at least with two of our movies this week, they were worth watching. Although our first movie review, though, maybe for one of us, not so much.
Yes, we've got The Hangover, the new comedy classic, which
new, quote unquote.
well, it's kind of it was kind of like the last gasp of Hollywood really making R-rated comedies.
That's true. Yeah,
it was kind of in that era where you had things like Superbad, Horrible Bosses.
Mm-hmm.
Well, those are really the examples that are coming to mind. I'm sure there's a couple others, but
yeah.
And I think that I forget, was Superbad first or was Hangover first?
I think Superbad was first.
Okay,
Superbad was like 2007, 2008.
Okay, that sounds right. I actually saw Superbad in the theater and thought it was all right. But
okay. Yeah.
But
yeah, so The Hangover.
I still see people with McLovin merchandise to this day.
Oh
but
yeah.
But yes, I guess we'll actually have to talk about Hangover at some point.
Yeah. But with The Hangover, this was 2009. Todd Phillips directed it. Of course, he did the Joker movies. Unfortunately, he did that second one recently, which but he also did Old School, Starsky and Hutch.
Which I think Starsky and Hutch is a bit underrated.
I do too, yeah.
I remember the one scene where they shot through the wall and killed the pony. My mom was just kind of helpless after that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so premise of The Hangover is that it's a bachelor party gone horribly awry.
Yes. So our three main, they're four guys, but we'll really only follow three of them. We've got the groom, Doug, who's played by Justin Bartha, who, and some people probably might not know him. The only thing I know, only other thing I know him from was he was Nicolas Cage's sidekick in National Treasure.
Yeah, a quick look over this is show of his IMDb is showing me a lot of fives and lower.
Oh yeah,
a lot of. Oh no, he was in the National Treasure. He was in that National Treasure Disney Plus show.
Oh, he was. Oh,
I don't even remember anybody mentioning that.
I remember people briefly mentioning it, and they said it was really bad.
Oof.
But yeah,
good for him for getting a paycheck, I guess.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so Doug is getting married, and so they're gonna have a bachelor party in Vegas, and he's bringing along his two lifelong friends, Phil, who's played by Bradley Cooper, and then Stu, who's played by Ed Helms. And then, of course, they have to bring along Alan, who is Zach Galifianakis, and that's Doug's future brother-in-law.
Mhm.
Of course, Alan is, it's the classic scenario where you have like a group of guys, a close circle of friends, and they're like, they got to bring in this outsider who's just really weird. And they're like, oh, why do we have to bring this guy along? He's
Right. Like it's just like, ah, man, why do we have to bring this loser along? Which is
yeah,
actually kind of perfect casting for Zach Galifianakis, who I'm just going to go on the record and say that I have never quite understood why the world thought he was funny for about a 5-year period there, and why they kept putting it in movies. This probably helped.
yeah, probably, yeah, because this movie was a hit.
Big hit.
Yeah,
It spawned 3 sequels.
two,
Excuse me, 2.
yeah.
It's part of a trilogy.
Right,
Yeah. It also, Bridesmaids, I believe, is completely unrelated to this, but I'm pretty sure it was Bridesmaids. Wait, Bridesmaids coming after this, right?
I think so. Yeah, Bridesmaids. I want to say it was like early 2010s.
Yeah, 2011. Yeah, 2 years later. Yeah, I firmly believe that Bridesmaids would not have been made without this.
Oh no.
Just because it always seems so similar to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So then, so as they get to Vegas and they're about ready to party, and then then the next morning they wake up in their hotel suite, and the place is trashed, and they all are just like in various states of disarray and pain and everything.
Right.
And
Stu's missing one tooth. There's a tiger in the bathroom, and nobody knows where Doug is, the groom.
yeah,
So, so they have to like retrace their steps to try to reverse engineer how the night went, so they can find Doug and get him to his wedding the next day.
right. Yeah, and the other part of it too is they find a baby in there. That's the baby that Galifianakis has got, and he affectionately names him Carlos. And of course, yeah, and basically the whole movie is just them, retracing their steps and getting into all kinds of trouble along the way. They find out that the tiger is actually Mike Tyson's tiger.
He has an extended cameo in the movie as himself.
Yeah, which is probably my favorite part of the movie. He's listening to Phil Collins In the Air Tonight, and he's like, "Oh no, wait, I love this part of the song." And then the kid is actually the baby is Heather Graham's character's baby. Jade was her name. She's an exotic dancer who Ed Helms, Stu gets hitched to, even though he has a very just domineering and unfaithful and just plain old god awful girlfriend.
Yeah, let's kind of break down the cast a little bit. So we've already described Zach's character a bit. Alan, he's the weirdo. He very quickly turned me off just because, how to put it, I think that he was kind of edgy in 2009, but today he just kind of comes off as try hard, might be the way I would put it.
Yeah.
It's also like that, this very awkward flavor of 2010s millennial comedy, right? The whole fun of it is, haha, Dimitri Martin is awkward, except that like Dimitri Martin used clever wordplay where Zach was just like, oh, I can't be within 200 feet of schools or a playground. It's like,
yeah,
like, that's just gross.
Zach was just like, oh, I can't be.
Oh, I can hear myself in your.
Sorry, I was messing around my phone. Very sorry about that.
No worries. All right, so like he's like the awkward loner. He's the one who's there to say the weird line. Bradley Cooper's character is basically, he's the kind of the Chad friend who's kind of a complete jerk too. And I think that part of where I couldn't connect with this movie is that I am much more like Stu than any other member of this cast, in the sense
Yeah,
that,
yeah, me too. Yeah.
like, you know, not that I have like a domineering girlfriend or anything like that, but more that he's nice. He wants good things to happen to people. The only thing he does in this movie that's even remotely wrong is he lies to his girlfriend that, oh yeah, he keeps lying to his girlfriend that they're going to this Martha's Vineyard to go to this wine tasting when they're in Vegas, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah.
Meanwhile, Bradley Cooper's character, he's a teacher, kind of a grown-up frat boy, I guess is the way I put it. He has a kid. Seems to have his life together. He in the opening bit, he steals a bunch of money that he was given to take the kids on a trip and puts it into the gambling kitty.
Yeah. Which wouldn't that be a fireable offense?
If not an arrestable offense.
Yeah.
So like the two out of the three characters gave me a very bad impression. I would also say that's kind of interesting is that I would actually say that those two are the ones who don't actually have a character arc.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah. Stu is really the only one who has a character arc. Yeah.
That could be fine. Like the movie I kept comparing this to in my head was Blues Brothers, where that isn't my favorite movie ever, I'll admit, but it's just an example of where you can have steady state characters where the two of them don't really change through that movie, but that's okay because they are distinctive characters who you can just present with different weird scenarios.
Yeah.
And they have a larger goal. And this one they have a larger goal, but if you have one of the three characters who's growing and progressing through the movie as he slowly learns to man up and stop putting up with bad treatment, it feels weird to have the other two characters be static.
Yeah. And of course we forgot to mention Ken Jeong's character, Leslie Chow.
Yes, a very sassy, stereotypically Asian talking mob boss of some sort.
Yeah, who they had stuff in the trunk of their car,
of the stolen police car. Actually, no, excuse me. That wasn't the stolen police car. That was in the in the fancy sports car that they've been lent by Zach's dad.
Yeah,
played by Jeffrey Tambor, who I always enjoy seeing in things. So it's kind of a shame he got canceled a while back.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, but yeah, he claims that he. Well, I won't get into the plot, but yeah, he shows up in the other movies too, which it's just kind of like the joke wears a little thin in the sequels. Let's just say.
Yeah. So I think that this is the first time I'm going to say that I enjoyed the ending more than the journey to get there, which sounds weird to say because like usually if I'm watching a movie and I'm fairly checked out, the ending very rarely brings it home. But in this case, where Doug was, I don't think I'm going to spoil this. Doug it turned out to be was actually pretty interesting, like very clever. They actually set it up in a couple of ways early on. And I could see other people actually predicting this, but it was a nice little fake out.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And they kind of tried to duplicate it in the second movie, and it was just like, yeah, they do something kind of similar. Yeah.
Okay, so is Todd Phillips just genetically incapable of making a good sequel? Is that what's going on here?
I think so. Yeah.
Again, okay, I would say like maybe what's going on is that in the case of both of his big movies, in this case, Hangover and The Joker, he had no plans for a sequel, and they backed up the Brinks truck, so he decided to have fun with them. It almost seems like.
Probably, yeah. That seems likely. Yeah.
But like the other comparison I'll make with Blues Brothers, and also Animal House, like that's those were two comedies that I didn't really care for, and that's like the brand of comedy this was kind of going for, in my opinion. I think it felt very much of a piece.
It's frat boy humor. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Both of those movies were full of like clever little lines.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, we have both kinds of music, country and Western. Or like when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
I watched this movie on Saturday, and moments stood out to me, but there's no like pithy bon mots or anything like that.
Yeah. It's kind of one of those. The humor is kind of like just throw a bunch of stuff at you that makes absolutely no sense in the moment, and everybody's freaking out, and of course the famous moment where Stu's in the back of the police car, he's like, "What's going on?"
Yeah,
like that. Yeah. It's that kind of It's just
right. It is like it's the juxtaposition with the expected and the unexpected.
Yeah. So I guess between this movie, Animal House, and Blues Brothers, frat boy humor is not your thing.
I guess not. My hierarchy for those movies would definitely be, I would put Blues Brothers on top, then Animal House, then this. And I'll tell you why. It's like, so this, just so the audience can calibrate my opinion based on their own tastes. Like, my favorite parts of Animal House were whenever Otter was sweet talking somebody. Like, I am a dialogue heavy guy. I like cleverness and wordplay and irony and things like that. Just like Mike Tyson punching somebody is kind of funny, but it's like I've known about that scene since I saw the trailer back in 2009.
That's true, yeah.
So it didn't have a lot of shock value.
Yeah, although the other part I like was when they're at his house and they're watching the security footage, and Galifianakis is relieving himself in Tyson's pool, and he's like, I think I should probably go wait outside. And Tyson, I think that's a good idea, Alan.
Well, what I'll also say is that I watched the entire series of Mike Tyson's Murder Mysteries, the Cartoon Network show that he did, or the Adult Swim show he did. And so this Mike Tyson is almost like he can carry on a logical train of thought. So like even on that one, I've seen it done elsewhere. So
yeah.
So audience members, you might enjoy this. I can see where somebody would enjoy this, and like I said, I did actually like the ending because Stu got a good payoff at the end.
Yeah.
Where Doug was actually really clever and well set up. Just reasonable minds will differ.
Yeah,
because I know that you do enjoy this movie and you do enjoy frat boy comedy.
Yes. So I will say, stay away from the sequels.
From when we talked about this before, it just really sounded like it was the search for more money.
It really was, yeah. The second movie is basically this movie, but in Bangkok instead of Vegas. And then the third movie, I don't know what they were trying to do with that movie. That one.
Okay. So the second movie, how many jokes about ladyboys were there?
One.
That's actually way more restraint than I was expecting.
Oh, there's a whole thing in there with it.
So it's recurring.
Yeah. It does get brought up in there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's like the one stereotype I can think of about Bangkok besides chess games there. And if you know that reference, then you're cool.
That song, by the way, is in the second movie, and I won't say how it fits in there, but I might tell you later. But yeah.
Okay. Well, right. I kind of wish I had been able to time out that. Speaking of the quest for more money, because that would be a better transition to our next movie. So I guess you could just call me Unforgiven.
Yes.
From the ridiculous to the sublime.
Yes. Yeah, I think this was my suggestion, because I've always been interested in this movie, but I haven't had the chance to watch it. This was kind of, I mean, would you call this Clint Eastwood's magnum opus?
I was just about to say I've only more recently started watching Clint Eastwood movies. So what I'll say is that it's kind of a hole in my movie watching from when I was younger, and just only fairly recently had friends who were into him. So I don't necessarily know that I'm in the position to say magnum opus, but it's definitely it would definitely be a contender. And I can't think of what other movie he had such a big part in. Maybe Gran Torino. I keep meaning to watch that at some point.
Yeah, I need to watch that one too.
So at the very least, we can say this is his Western magnum opus, because it actually won Best Picture. What surprised me when I found out about that little factoid, only 3 movies that are Westerns have ever won Best Picture. One from 1931, a long gap, then Dances with Wolves in 1986, and then this one in 1992.
Wow.
Which means that the Academy, during the entirety of the period where Westerns were like the genre, basically treated it the same way they treat superhero movies today.
Yeah, it's just like, whatever.
Common people's fare. Pithaw.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if in the next 10 or 20 years, if superhero movies finally die off and then somebody makes a superhero movie, that one won't win a Best Picture.
Yeah, that's very possible.
Yeah. But yeah, so this movie, this movie came out at a time when Westerns were basically dead.
And this wasn't even the first time that Eastwood had tried to revive Westerns. I remember there was some movie I watched in the late 70s or the 80s that was not very successful because the market had just moved on despite his best efforts.
Yeah.
I can't think of what it was off the top of my head, but
when did was it Pale Rider?
Pale Rider. I don't think it was Pale Rider I was talking about, but I want to say that was Pale Rider movie.
Bronco Billy. Was that it?
That might be maybe. I don't know if I've seen it.
Yeah, Bronco Billy was
Pale Rider was 1985.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe that's the one I was thinking of. Anyhow, so Unforgiven, it was successful. It was acclaimed critically, won an Oscar. A complete pile of garbage. No.
Yeah. No. This is a really good movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we got It's very interesting because it feels like it actually I would almost argue it's a series of fake outs.
Yeah.
Because at least I've seen enough Westerns over time, and specifically enough of the types of movies that Clint Eastwood tends to be in, that I was taken aback by almost every plot point. Because on the surface, it almost seems like the type of movies that you would see a Stallone or like another classic movie star coming back to do, like, he's an old broken down man. He has one last chance to ride in the saddle again, and he's going to go out there and be amazing. No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So the movie takes place in 1880, and Eastwood plays retired, gunslinger named Will Mooney. He retired because he. Oh, hey, D. Rhino, good to see you.
Hey, man. Yep. It's the classic love of a good woman story.
Yes, but and she passed away from smallpox, and so now he's raising his son and daughter on this little hog farm, which isn't doing too well. And
Daddy, I think 2 more of the pigs got the fever.
Yeah. And but then a kid. And that's
actually, we've jumped a bit ahead.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So the opening of the movie is surprising on a number of levels. First off, for just being kind of brutal.
Yeah.
So there are two cowboys are at a brothel doing what you do at a brothel.
Mm-hmm.
When one girl who had been brought in from Boston at a great expense by the pimp, or
the proprietor of the establishment.
Yes, proprietor of the establishment is the polite way of putting it. Makes fun of one of the cowboys for not being well endowed, and his response is he pulls out his Bowie knife and proceeds to slash her up.
Yes, and the madam of the ladies doesn't take too kindly to that.
She takes even less kindly to it when the sheriff, Little Bill Daggett, played by Gene Hackman, in a very nice turn, decides to because the proprietor had gone to great expense, he decides that rather than just whipping the 2 boys like he'd originally planned, he decides to treat it like a property crime, and 5 horses to the proprietor will make up for the loss.
Which is like, what?
That's he's not the injured party here, really.
Yeah. You call that justice?
Nope. And like you said, the madam doesn't take kindly to it, so they put in a collection for $1,000 for a bounty,
which back then was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so then we go back to
so back to our story already in progress.
Yes, because I jumped ahead a little. Eastwood's paid a visit by this 20-ish-year-old wannabe gunslinger, calls himself the Schofield Kid because he uses a Schofield pistol.
Played by I don't know if this is Himes Woolvet or James Woolvet.
Yeah.
Jimz.
Yeah, I've never heard of him, never seen him in anything else besides this.
His IMDb stops in 2008, but it does not appear that he is dead. So I'm going to guess that he decided to just move on with himself.
Yeah. Probably that, I made a movie with Clint Eastwood. That's probably going to be the highlight of my career. Just only good. But he goes to Eastwood to tell him about the bounty, and of course he greatly exaggerates the injuries that happened to the young lady. Which is kind of a theme with this movie, that stories about people and events tend to get exaggerated the more they get told.
Yeah, that's very much you're right. You hit the nail right on the head. That's the theme right there, because the kid exaggerates his own the story. The kid exaggerates his own skills. Another character who shows up for the bounty, a dapper British gunslinger named English Bob, played by Richard Harris, has a newspaper, or has a novelist along with him to record his doings and add it to his book.
Yes,
which is itself full of a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah. Yeah, and then and when English Bob shows up in the town, Gene Hackman, the sheriff, little Bill, he makes him give up his guns because you're not allowed to have guns in this town. Which I guess Little Bill has never heard of the Second Amendment.
Little Bill would tell. Little Bill is interesting because early on, it's okay. The way I was kind of expecting this to go, I didn't expect Little Bill to continue being a character because I said, okay, this is going to turn into a hunt for these two cowboys.
Yeah.
And so we're going to leave this town behind, or maybe Little Bill is going to try to chase them down, like be on their tail. No, the movie actually is kind of a limited set of sets, and he's the real villain.
Yeah, which I was not expecting.
No. Also, we should mention that they also recruit Morgan Freeman playing Ned Logan, another old associate of Bill Mooney, aka Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
Because he's a great sharpshooter.
Yeah. And so that's basically the crux of it. And then they get into the town, and of course it's raining as they're getting in there, and I think Eastwood catches pneumonia, looked like.
Yeah, so some sort of awful disease.
Yeah. And so they kind of have to take their time, trying to find these two cowboys. And of course, you got Hackman there, being being a jerk about everything.
He's a little tyrant. And what's really funny about it is that if you look at all of them, okay, like there are basically 4 real gunfighters in this movie, like 4 classic gunfighters: English Bob, Little Bill, Bill Mooney, Ned Logan. 3 of them have technically gone legit because Bill Mooney moved on. Ned Logan has by the way, Ned Logan, aka Morgan Freeman, in case you're not keeping up, he has a much nicer plot of land than Clint Eastwood did.
Yeah.
Like, it has water access. You can grow multiple types of. He has a nice garden. It's just instead of being out in the middle of nowhere, with a bunch of sick pigs.
Yeah.
English Bob is still active as a gunfighter, but it's clear, like, he's clearly just going around, collecting little bounties and using his gunfighting skills to hassle people.
Yeah.
But then, it seems like Little Bill Daggett is the most legit of them all. But he's actually he'd basically be like a little tin horn dictator.
Yeah.
Who just it's like instead of being part of a posse, he took his posse, turned them into the constabulary, and just took over a town.
Pretty much, yeah. And what was I gonna? I was gonna mention something else. So the basically the whole basically with Eastwood's character with Bill Mooney, that he's avoided trying to go back to his old life because he doesn't want to dishonor his late wife's memory, and he doesn't partake of the ladies, and he doesn't drink. Yeah. Which is very important because certain things happen in the movie where all of that just kind of goes out the window.
Yeah. So kind of the spoiler light before we get into too much depth on it. This move. So if you had things like The Man with No Name that were kind of a response to like the overly heroic cowboys of the previous decade or so.
Yeah.
That kind of like were subversive in that way. This is like super subversive. Because like in those Man with No Name movies, I would say that he is still, I wouldn't necessarily say heroic per se, but like he's always like the lesser of all evils. He still kind of is in this one.
Yeah.
At the same time, like a lot of misery happens because of a little bit of like an event outside of or a moment of passion that just leads to a lot of unnecessary death when you get down to it.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, this movie's. I mean, I definitely recommend it for anybody, even if you don't like westerns. I would still recommend it.
Right, because it's very grounded, and it's just it's well shot. Everybody's really good in their roles, including characters like I would say Gene Hackman as the sheriff is a major highlight, just because he's able to, like, he believably goes from kind of jovial and fatherly to extreme rage at the drop of a hat.
Yeah. And yeah, Hackman was always really good at that. Just kind of being real, at one moment being like, oh, hey, hi, how are you doing? Smiling and yeah, hey, and then just being a total prick. Excuse my language.
You're excused. So it's currently streaming on Max. So if you want to watch it, that's a good place to do so.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Spoiler time.
Yes.
So I think that you were saying earlier that a big theme of this movie is how it's how most stories are full of nonsense, or like most stories are exaggerated in the retelling.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one clear example of that is so the woman has a few slashes on her face. I would say that like she has some scarring, but it's not like she's disfigured or anything. Now, like for a lady of the evening, like that's going to lower her market value, which sounds awful to say, but that's, the premise of the movie.
Yeah.
And that's why the sheriff treated it like a property crime. Instead of it being like an actual assault on a human being.
Yeah.
But like when Eastwood is told the story, he is basically told that now in that one, I believe that it was like he was told that he had slashed her eyes and ears.
Yeah. And cut her boobs off.
Okay, so he was told that.
Yeah.
So I thought he had exaggerated it again, but I guess not.
Yeah.
Also, harsh language in this movie. I'm not going to repeat the harsh language here, but like I was just about to say, wait, that's harsh language.
Yeah.
People should probably know about that.
Yeah.
But so it's like it exaggerates in the retelling. But also what's interesting is that there's definitely some symbolism here. You find out probably the reason that the Schofield kid wanted help from these, from a beaten down old man, is because he actually he's very nearsighted.
Yeah. He can't see, more than 10 feet in front of him.
Yeah, he claims I can see up to 50 yards, but he's also a complete liar. So
yeah. There's a scene there where Morgan Freeman was like, oh, because Morgan Freeman was really a good shooter, and he points up at the sky and he says, well, I could shoot that hawk up there. And then you look up at the sky and there's no hawk up there, and the kid's like, oh, I could shoot that hawk.
There ain't no hawk or a twa.
Yeah.
Sorry. There's a joke that's gonna age this podcast.
Yeah. Ooh.
But there's something about, to my mind, that like him being so short-sighted when what he wants is to join this awful life of deprivation and murder and violence and bloodshed and all that bad stuff is very, I'd almost call it on the nose symbolism, but it's very appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course the other part of it too with English Bob, within his biographer, he's writing all these stories, and of course, Hackman beats him up and throws him in the jail cell, and then little Hackman, little Bill, is telling him, like, most of those stories, oh, that's BS, he didn't really do that, or didn't really.
Let me tell you the real story.
Yeah.
Which of course, yes, because the sheriff is totally
right, he's totally
a reliable source.
Yeah. He couldn't possibly be a liar.
But since the biographer is W.W. Beauchamp, played by Saul Rubinek.
Yeah.
Who seems vaguely familiar, and he has a pretty stacked IMDb, but I don't recognize any of his roles. So I'll just call him, I'll just assume he's just a character actor. I've probably seen in something without realizing it.
Yeah. He was on a show that I watched called Warehouse 13.
Oh, yeah. I've seen a little bit of that.
Yeah. Yeah, he's been around a lot of, I think he's Canadian.
That would make sense. That would explain why he's in the Blackberry movie.
Yeah.
But clearly, like, he was willing to jump. He was willing to jump teams as soon as a better story came along.
Yeah. But yeah, then they, of course, when they eventually encounter the Cowboys, they take care of them. But Freeman, Morgan Freeman, he tries to shoot him, but he just, he's at that point in his life where he's like, he can't take any more lives.
Yep, he lost his nerve.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is I compared this earlier to the type of Back in the Saddle movie that you see a lot. Like, I would even say that, like, it's kind of similar to the structure of Commando in a way, just to bring up a kind of a silly movie. But you have the retired fighter who is forced to come back for one last romp.
Right. Yeah. I can see the similarities there. Yeah.
But this is absolutely not treated as anything glorious or great. Like,
no.
Bill Mooney becoming the gunfighter again is a slow transition that almost kills him several times over because he's a broken down old man.
Yeah.
And I've seen Pale Rider where he is literally a instrument of vengeance, sent either a demon, a dark angel. You can debate what he is in that movie.
Yeah.
but Clint Eastwood may have never seemed, and I've also seen like a couple of the Dirty Harry movies, some of his other action roles. I have never seen him seem so much like a spirit of righteous, cold vengeance as I have in this movie.
Oh yeah.
Because when he's back in the saddle, because they basically Morgan Freeman's character ends up dying or ends up getting killed by Little Bill Daggett because he's torturing him for information, trying to figure out where Bill and the Schofield kid are.
Yeah.
And they just set him up in a coffin outside the brothel as a warning to everybody else about what happens if you break the law. And he comes in and just unleashes holy hell.
Oh yeah. And it's glorious. Yeah.
Yes. And it's just what I particularly like there is in the aftermath, you have the biographer saying, well, an experienced gunfighter will always go for the most dangerous target first. It's like he says it with such authority, like he knows anything that he's talking about, just because he's talked with a lot of people. And that felt, no, I guess I just got kind of lucky that way.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, this it's you mentioned the violence in the movie being not really like glorified, I guess. Which I guess is that's something that Eastwood actually purposefully tries to put in his movies, is that despite what people might think about him, he's really not big on violence, and he tries to show the consequences of violence. That it's not a pretty thing.
Right. Like, I mean, the only good that comes out of this violence is he got the money to make a new life somewhere else with his kids.
Yeah.
But that's cold comfort, considering that he lost his best friend, which means that his best friend's wife, Indian woman, is now a widow.
Yeah.
Actually, were they married? I was realized I'm not sure, or if they're
I
just living
don't
together.
I don't know if they were married or they're just living together. I don't know what their arrangement was.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But it also kind of, when you think about it, like I said, it was a moment of passion by one cowboy, resulting in the death of, let's see, um, uh,
1, 2,
uh,
3.
roughly a dozen people,
Yeah.
give or take, maybe.
Thereabouts. Yeah.
Um, and really, like, did it actually accomplish anything? Did it bring the girl's face back? No,
Mhm.
not really. No.
Yeah.
Um, in fact, if anything, it probably hurt their business, because now the town will be thrown into chaos and they no longer have their boss. So
Yeah. Because the boss was, I think, the
the first to die.
first to die. Yeah.
Yeah, because he's like, all right, who owns this place? Because of course they had Morgan Freeman's corpse outside on
Yeah.
display.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I mean, this is this movie is a classic for a reason.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
yeah.
it also has a great line that I've seen quoted many places, where when after the Schofield kid actually kills somebody, you were talking before about how Clint Eastwood doesn't actually like violence that much.
Yeah.
And that was actually a great moment. Like, I loved the performance and writing in that scene, because he went from overjoyed, yeah, I killed him. Yeah, I killed him. Basically, is the
Yeah.
progression.
Like, oh, I killed him.
And that's where Clint Eastwood is like, or is like that. I'm going to paraphrase here because I'm not great with quotes for this type of thing. It's a heavy thing to kill a man. You're not only taking away everything he is, you're taking away everything he could be.
Yeah.
Which, as soon as you mention that about Eastwood, like, okay, yep, that's that moment. That's the thesis of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what's funny is that now that I think about it, the two cowboys who they went after,
Yeah.
outside of that, again, like what I'm just going to call a moment of awful emotion,
Yeah.
they don't actually seem like that bad of guys by the standards of the age.
No, they're especially the one that wanted to give the horse to the girl that the woman that got attacked.
Right? He clearly felt bad about it.
Yeah.
I don't think and I think that they accused the one friend of helping cut the girl, but wasn't he trying to stop his friend?
Yeah, he was trying to get her. Yeah, he was trying to get him off. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, man, there's a lot of this. I think this is one I could see myself rewatching in a few years, just because it really there's layers here,
Yeah,
which I
there are.
appreciate.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yep. For firm recommend. Great movie.
Yeah.
Now to once again ping pong to the opposite end of the spectrum, and the
Yeah.
complete absence of depth and layers.
Yes.
Despicable Me 4.
Uh,
So Daniel hasn't watched this. I ended up watching this with my parents on maybe Thanksgiving night or some night this week. I was over there. I forget when exactly,
yeah.
but it was basically one of those things where my parents like light, happy movies, and I was like kind of a little bit curious about this. So I will fully say right now, I have not seen a full Despicable Me movie. I've seen most of 2, and I actually kind of remember liking it. But I was substitute teaching at a special ed class that day, and well, the darn people at the school districts don't make classes 2 hours long, so you never get
yeah.
to see a whole movie if you're substituting.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen the first 2. And they're fun enough movies. I mean, they're and I've seen the 2 Minions movies, and those are all right.
Perfectly serviceable is a way I would describe this movie.
Yeah.
So I have ended up seeing a lot of sequels to a lot of kids CGI movies, and what I've concluded is that with these types of movies, like, okay, so you have Despicable Me 1, where I basically know the premise. Supervillain ends up having, I forget, was he? Why did he end up adopting those kids?
He was trying to. Okay, so if I remember right, they were Girl Scouts, I think.
Okay.
And it was part of his scheme to try to get this. God, it was some. Oh, it was the shrink ray, because he was trying to shrink the moon.
Okay.
And the girls were part of his scheme to try to steal it. I think that's what it was.
Okay. I'll accept that.
Yeah, it's been about 10 years since I've seen that movie, so I don't remember it too well.
Totally fair.
Yeah.
So by the fourth movie, he has gone from being a supervillain to he's just an agent of the good guys, whatever their shield-like organization is. But he ends up at a high school reunion for this school for villainy that he went to, where he runs into a mad scientist played by, what's his name? Will Ferrell, doing a very bad French accent.
Oh.
Who is a guy who is obsessed with cockroaches, so he has turned himself into a half-man, half-cockroach mutant, which I was a little bit disappointed that my dad didn't seem to get it when I said to him, I was watching this, and one morning Gregor Samsa woke up to find that he had turned into a giant cockroach. That's neither here nor there. So the thing is, he is for some reason the supervillains seem to be largely okay with a governmental organization showing up to try to arrest this guy. Which, now that I think, this movie kind of doesn't hold up well under thought, because there'd also be questions like, wait, the government is aware there's a school for supervillains? Yes. Why is this a place people can go to? Why hasn't it been shut down? Shut up. But he escapes in the course of the attempt to arrest them, and so they decide that they're going to put Gru's family into witness protection. Now, so where I was starting before I realized I didn't really know why he had a family to start with. So by now, he has a kid, he has a wife. I should say he has a biological son. He has a wife played by Kristen Wiig.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And they end up going to another town, and so this is an interesting story in the sense that it doesn't really feel like a story. Basically, every character, except for like the middle daughter, kind of didn't have a lot to do. Every character has a thing that they're dealing with in the movie, but it doesn't have enough time to really devote to anybody. It's like I'd say like the main storyline is that Gru, because he's gone a lot, his son doesn't actually like him.
Yeah.
So it's him trying to win his son over. Each daughter kind of has the thing going on. Like I said, the middle child kind of doesn't have a storyline.
Yeah.
Probably the best part of it is that was a bit where the neighbor kid at their new house figured out that he was Gru and she wants to get into supervillainy, and so she makes him help her steal the school mascot of the villain school, because that'll look good on her entrance exam. Or good on her application. That's probably the best part of the movie, arguably completely unnecessary, and having her there as an additional character. Plus, they steal a honey badger, who is now just part of the story. And now just another extended member of the cast that's already kind of bloated. Like, she has a nice character design. I think it's kind of clever. I actually think that would be a story you could make a whole movie out of on its own. Like, just have it be like Harry Potter, but with like a supervillain twist.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit wasted here because again, like basically every character gets to have one or two scenes. There's not a lot of character development aside from, Gru does eventually win his son over.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll say is that, how to put it? Okay, I actually like Steve Carell. He's charming. He's funny. He has good timing. He's good at what he does.
Yeah, I do
Um,
too. Yeah.
in my opinion, him doing Gru is like an awful voice acting job. Like
Yeah.
he sounds like somebody who can't actually do a foreign accent or a foreign villain accent, being asked to do an accent. And it's like it's 4 movies deep now. I can't believe they're still paying me to do this.
Yeah.
Because people keep throwing $1 billion at these movies every time they come out. Or close enough to it.
Yeah, and from his perspective, I mean, he's probably getting, a couple of $1,000,000 to do about a week's worth of work.
Right.
And,
Show up, record some lines. In my actually, what was really funny was that I kept thinking that Will Ferrell sounded like Dr. Doofenshmirtz from from Phineas and Ferb, which is funny. Like that shows you how bad the French accent is, that it keeps making me think of a German guy.
Oh. Well, so was his French accent better or worse than his Icelandic accent? From the Eurovision.
I would say that he did a better job in Eurovision of having an accent.
Okay.
So, but overall, like, did I hate this? No. Would I watch a Despicable Me 5? Only if I was watching with other people who happened to be watching it.
Yeah, you're not going to go out of your way to watch it. Yeah.
Yeah. I probably do want to watch Despicable Me 2 sometime, just because I want to see how it ended, because I thought it had a neat setup, and this movie is basically smothered under there being too many characters in the cast now.
Yeah.
So it's like it's very much a turn on, and I don't think your kids will be harmed by this movie, but it also isn't going to challenge them at all.
It's just it'll keep their attention for 90 minutes.
Right. And if for me, the writer, it made like the one bit with the teen girl trying to make him do the help him out with the scheme, made me think, man, you're kind of wasting what could be an entire series on a side character who, if she is in the next movie, is just going to continue to contribute to the bloat of the story.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Well, not a firm recommendation, but
harmless enough.
Harmless enough. Yeah.
Speaking of movies about villainous organizations, though,
as far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. Ooh.
So this is the movie that this is a movie that has firmly permeated not only pop culture but meme culture.
Yeah. Wait, what do you mean I'm funny? Am I
funny
clown?
how
am I funny? Am I clown? I amuse you.
Yeah. So watching this after we watched Wolf of Wall Street felt kind of strange.
Yeah.
Because let me tell you about this Martin Scorsese movie. It's a real life story of a guy who starts off at the bottom of an organization, climbs his way up, gets drunk on power and on lots and lots of drugs, cheats on his wife. There's a tearful moment where the wife is holding a child while drugs are being done, and she says she's leaving him.
Yeah.
And then it all falls apart, and then he goes through the justice system. That could easily describe both Goodfellas and Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah. The big difference is Goodfellas has violence, and Wolf of Wall Street has sex. That's probably about the only difference between the two.
Yeah, what's your poison? Do you want more mob violence, or do you want more debauchery?
Yeah. You want to watch a mafia movie, or a movie about a guy who was a despicable Wall Street stock trader.
So to kind of run through some of the cool parts of the cast, There really is no one who isn't cool in the cast. Now that I think about it,
There really isn't. Yeah. Everybody plays their parts very well and convincingly.
uh, a few weeks back we talked about how like we were doing different casting because we thought that De Niro was so miscast in his movie.
Oh yeah.
Like this is perfect casting for him.
Yes.
As a violent mob boss.
Yeah.
Ray Liotta as the main character, Henry Hill. No, not Hank Hill. That's distinct.
I tell you what.
I tell you what. Ray, Ray's our main character. He's our POV character. He's doing the voiceover. That's the other reason this is so much like Wolf of Wall Street. It has like a constant narration.
Yeah, yeah. There's even a fourth wall break at some point in this movie.
Then you got Joe Pesci, who won was a supporting actor for this
supporting actor, yeah.
Well deserved, as just we talked in the previous one for Unforgiven about how what's his name, the sheriff
Gene
Hackman is good at going from jovial to violent at the drop of the hat. Joe Pesci might have him beat.
Yeah. Funny story about when he won the Oscar. He didn't think he was going to win.
Yeah,
and so when he went up to accept the award, he just said, well, thank you very much. And then he just walked off because he didn't have a speech prepared. He didn't know what to say.
Goes to show that nobody quite knows their own worth.
Yeah. Yeah.
One way or the other.
Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, we got Henry Hill, Ray Liotta, who's the POV, character. And we see his progression from, where he starts off as a kid working at a cab stand run by this crime family, and then eventually going up to like selling cigarettes, and that's when he meets Robert De Niro's character, Jimmy Conway, and then of course he also meets Pesci's character, Tommy DeVito, when they're both up and coming guys in the organization, and then eventually Henry meets his future wife, Karen, who's played by Lorraine Bracco, who she's been in a lot of stuff. I remember her from Rizzoli and Isles. She played Rizzoli's mom. Rizzoli was played by Angie Harmon, and then she was the psychiatrist in The Sopranos. In fact, a lot of people,
kind of funny.
Yeah, actually, quite a few actors from this movie were in The Sopranos. Oddly enough,
I guess that makes sense, because if you can be a convincing Italian American mobster in that, then why not carry it over to another series? And if I'm casting for that, that's gonna, they can do it.
Yeah, yeah. And then they kind of basically it's just a vignette of a lot of things that happen during Henry's time with the I looked up, it was the Lucchese crime family. And they're pulling off all these different pulling off different heists at the airport. Like the first big one he does is with Air France, where they steal a bunch of money that was in France. Like when you go to France and you exchange your currency, they send the currency back over here, and that's basically what they stole. Then there's of course there's the great scene with Billy Batts. Yeah, Billy Batts. Yeah, so Billy Batts is he's a made man in the Gambino crime family, and they're having he's having his welcome back party because he just got out of prison. And he's
of course they emphasize, if you go to prison, you do your time, you don't say nothing.
Right, exactly. And 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 there's a whole bit in there too where when Henry and Jimmy go to prison, and prison's not the same for wise guys as it is for all the other prisoners. It's actually it's almost like going on a vacation for a few years.
It kind of looked like a little vacation home. Like, you don't get to choose your company, of course, but they're all just making themselves a really nice a really nice Italian dinner all the time.
Yeah. But Billy, of course, has a history with Tommy, Pesci, because he's like, hey, why don't Tommy, he was really good with shining shoes, he was really shiny, and he's like, I don't do that anymore, Billy.
Go get your shine box.
Go get your effing shine box, Tommy.
Yeah, just flips out, beats him down, shoots him multiple times. And this isn't a spoiler because this is how the movie starts. Is Ray Liotta's character Henry in the middle of helping Pesci and De Niro dispose of the evidence.
Yeah, and he's still alive in the trunk because they hear him banging around.
Yeah. So what's interesting about it is what you kind of expected based on that first scene. So I said, "Oh, okay," because I knew in advance that this was basically the story of the first wise guy. First wise guy. He wasn't a made man. He couldn't be a made man because he wasn't full-blooded Italian on both sides.
Right. Yeah.
But he was, he was up there.
Yeah.
I think he basically was, between him and De Niro's characters, they were basically as high up as you could get in the Italian mob without being Italian.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
But I knew that this was basically the story of the guy who broke the code of silence and ratted on the mob.
Yeah.
So I was saying to myself, "Oh, okay. I think I see how this is going to go. This is him, like, after this awful thing that he did, he's going to have like a moment of conscience, and that's going to be like the chink in the armor that makes him think about maybe giving up this life." And like the whole, I always wanted to be a gangster. Oh, that's supposed to be ironic because he eventually decides to stop being a gangster. Hell no.
No.
There's no room for conscience in the heart of Hank Hill. Henry Hill. I screwed up there.
That's all right.
He's a complete sociopath.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He only ratted because he got caught.
Yeah, and they were gonna whack him.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah.
So it's very, again, it's like Wolf of Wall Street. It's totally amoral.
Oh yeah. And the reason he gets busted is because when he was in prison, he makes a lot of drug connections with people in Pittsburgh, and and then he gets caught up in that. This little side gig, which of course his boss tells him, don't get involved in that stuff.
Don't worry, I won't get involved with that stuff. Proceeds to not only get involved with that stuff, but to get high on his own supply.
Yeah. But yeah, this movie is it's considered, I think it's considered like the best gangster movie ever made, if not, top 5 or top 3.
I still haven't seen The Godfather. We'll have to knock that off at some point. Just based on reputation, that would be this movie's only real competition.
Yeah, because I've seen the first Godfather. I haven't seen 2 or 3, but somebody I think probably put it best. The Godfather was what the mafia thought they were.
Okay.
This movie is what the mafia really was.
Okay, that tracks, because like that movie was much more about like honor and family and everything, where this was just about like amoral people doing awful things.
Yeah, and of course the other crux of it too is they pull off this big heist, and De Niro just gets really paranoid. You know, because everybody just starts doing stupid stuff like buying really expensive things, and he's like, "What are you doing? I told you not to do that." And
then the guy shows up with a pink Coupe de Ville, and
yeah. And another guy is his wife's got a brand new mink coat, and he's like, "What are you doing?"
yeah, it's. I think that's the other thing about the Scorsese that I don't think I'd ever seen a Scorsese movie before we started this podcast. He definitely has like, it's weirdly comedic.
Yeah.
Like the timing, it's even as awful things are happening objectively, it's always there's almost like a bit of comedy to it. Like
it's dark comedy, but yes, comedy nonetheless. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would call this another firm recommend.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily. You know what? We're going to put up the spoiler wall here. Firm recommend. You can watch it on Max.
Yes.
Definitely a classic. Definitely, like we had a good week here, folks. Like even if heck, even the Hangover is a classic of a sort.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
just not my cup of tea. But this one was. So to get back into this, so we've spoiled the broad strokes of the story, but there's like a couple of little things I want to do.
Okay.
Or at least one thing. Like speaking of darkly comedic, like the scene where they whack Pesci's character.
Oh yeah.
They tell him he's going to be made, and they take him hey, just step through here. It's a totally empty room, and there's a moment of realization. Oh no. And he just gets shot in the back of the head. Like even that has kind of comedic timing.
Yeah. That's one of those classic moments of the I'm dead and I know it. Like
Yeah, which to be fair, like if any character in anything we've watched this week deserved that kind of death, then
it was him. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a monster.
Well, yeah. What he does to that poor kid, Spider.
Yeah, like where he just it's like in one scene he goes, "Hey, you ever seen that one movie with Bogart, the Frisco Kid or whatever it was actually called?
Yeah.
Hey, dance, cowboy!"
Yeah.
Shoots him in the foot. Then the next week, he's walking out with a
boot, yeah.
boot on. As like, you know what? F you, kid. You got a lot of balls standing up to me. Blam, blam, blam.
What's wrong with you? What are you doing that for? It's like, well, you're gonna have to dig the hole. Like, okay, well, yeah. Not like I've never dug a hole before.
Yeah, like it's so funny because like you could so easily cut this movie to be, or you could totally tell this story in a totally serious, unfunny way, but it would not be nearly as entertaining.
Yeah. And for those of you millennial kids like DB and I, you probably watched Animaniacs.
Oh yeah.
And the Good Pigeons.
Good feathers.
Good feathers.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a pigeon.
Yeah. I a lot of you will probably watch this movie and go, oh, that's what that's from.
Yeah. Or if you watch The Simpsons like me, I swear every time you watch a really classic movie, another Simpsons episode unlocks.
Yeah.
Because there was an episode where Bart started working for the mobsters, and it really reminded me of this, even down to a plot where they hijack a truckload of cigarettes.
Yeah. And or when Bart shows up in a brand new suit.
Yeah,
Henry shows when he's a kid shows up and he's got a brand new suit. And you're like, hey, look at me, Ma.
Yeah. Who's the actor who does Fat Tony on The Simpsons?
Joe Montana.
I was actually very surprised I never noticed Joe Montana in this one.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think he was in Godfather 3, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
like I was actually kind of disappointed that I didn't get to see a younger Joe Mantegna anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think of any other movies like this he might have been in. Of course, well, if you want to see a young Joe Mantegna, watch Three Amigos. He's got that one scene in there, cold dead hell when Harry Flugelman lets an actor tell him what to do.
I didn't know that was him. I'm thinking I haven't seen it very recently, so
yeah, we strayed too far from the formula and we paid the price.
Joe Mantegna was in an episode of Cool Cat. What?
Really? Wow.
That's in 2019. They were making Cool Cat. That's totally bad movie lore that I'm not going to get into. But anyway.
But anyway, yeah. So yeah, we kind of went off on a little tangent there.
Yeah. But yeah, like this movie is full of so many great little moments that it's hard not to gush over.
Oh yeah. And I think it was nominated for Best Picture the year. And I want to say Dances with Wolves was one who won it. Or it might have been something else. I can't remember.
I think Dances with Wolves was earlier than this one, wasn't it?
Let's see if I can find the IMDb. They used to have the awards part on there in a very obvious place, but now they don't anymore.
They either want to sell you a subscription or they want to make you go through more of the page and see more ads.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Goodfellas, 1990 Academy Awards. Let's see here. It actually won Best Picture according to this.
Did it? Oh, it might have. Oh, you know what? Scorsese, I think a lot of people are saying Scorsese should have won Best Director for it.
Let's see here. No, wait. Okay, so this is that. Okay, it was nominated for Best Picture. It was nominated for Best Director.
Okay.
Pesci was the only winner who he won for Best Supporting Actor. Lorraine Bracco was for Best Actress.
Yeah.
It was nominated for Adapted Screenplay and for Film Editing.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what actually won this one, but
well, let me see here.
Okay, Nashville, All the President's Men, Terms of Endearment, Pulp Fiction, The Hurt Locker, Drive My Car, Tar. Okay, you know what? Oh wait, no, never mind. That's a list. I hate how this is laid out.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. Best Supporting Actor, Best Actress. Oh, that was the year Whoopi Goldberg won for Ghost.
Oh, okay. For some reason, I thought that Ghost was an '80s movie.
Yeah, no, it was early '90s. Okay, so Kevin Costner won Best Director for Dances with Wolves. So I think Dances with Wolves won that year.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that's probably good competition, but
yeah,
I've also never seen Dances with Wolves. But
it's
yeah, now this is. I can't help but feel it. Like this movie has probably stood the test of time better, if only because I've seen Avatar, so I've basically seen Dances with Wolves.
yeah, you have. Yeah, it's they're basically the same movies, just different settings and time periods.
Yeah. But yeah, what I was reading before was it's a weird factoid that they had on Wikipedia for some reason. One of 8 films to have won Best Picture from 3 out of 4 major U.S. critics groups. It's like that's not. Stop it. That's. I remember Jeremy on Geeks and Gamers once referred to LeBron James statistics, where sportscasters were so eager to say that LeBron James was amazing that they would like, oh well, this is the most points ever scored by a player in the third quarter.
Yeah.
On a Tuesday or whatever.
Yeah.
That kind of useless statistic.
Yeah.
I was starting to think that some of those movies seemed wrong.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but yeah, watch this movie if you haven't already.
Yeah, the actual review probably stopped like 10 minutes ago, but whatever. We had fun.
Yeah. But
for anybody could watch a movie, but you can only hear us talk about nothing here.
Indeed, yeah. Well, on that note,
It's time to pull the ejection before we get too far off out of it.
Yes. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. We appreciate it as always.
Yep.
To reiterate, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, ring the bell, all that good stuff, and we'll see you next week. Night, everybody.
Night, everyone.